This week on Supercars Talk, you can buy the whole series. The big news on everyone's lips this week is that the series is for sale. But first off, I'll cover off some of the news and then we'll get into the sale of Supercars. Peter Adderton, the walking headline, he has promised that Brock Feeney will have a seat on the 2022 grid. Where that is, nobody knows. We can assume at the moment that Brody could be moving on from Erebus, although he has a contract. He's probably looking... I reckon he's probably the top candidate for Jamie Whincup's seat. So that boost seat at Erebus will probably be available next year, if that move happens. And James Courtney, a lot of people have been criticising how badly Courtney's doing at Tickford there. He is actually second out of the three cars. Granted, there's only three, and his competition is Jack LeBrock. But if you were looking to shuffle someone out of that team at the moment, yeah, Jack LeBrock would be the obvious one. But it has emerged that James Courtney is not contracted to Tickford. He's contracted to Boost Mobile, who is funding that car. So if, Peter decides he wants to go with Brock over James Courtney, well, yeah. But it will be good. Brock Feeney will have a seat next year, pending any disasters. And in other 2022 news, it has come out, Chris Pither, with his Coke money, he should have a seat on the grid as well next year, as long as that Coke money is enough to buy him a seat somewhere, which this year it seems that it wasn't actually enough to buy him a seat, it was enough to buy him a co-drive, and then put that name all over the Brad Jones car all year, which... I'm not sure how that deal really works, because if it's not enough to buy Pither a seat for the whole year, how is it enough to fund Macaulay for the whole year? One suggestion I did come up with for the Coke money, though, if he is looking for somewhere to spend it, Vic Lee Racing, they're definitely into the business of taking Coke money. Those around in the 90s will get that reference. Big news. I think this is probably more interesting than the whole takeover thing at the moment, depending on what happens with the takeover. But they are talking about more endurance races next year. Supposedly last year we went backwards because of the whole COVID thing and people and whatnot. Next year they are... A little bit, unfortunately, they're talking at the moment about having another Enduro that will be after Bathurst, which will be after the Gen 3 cars come out. All I can say is, please, if we've got the Gold Coast as the finale, please let's not have that as an endurance race. I don't care if the second last round is an endurance race. I don't want the last round that is deciding the championship to be an endurance race. It didn't work when Bathurst was the last round of the championship, because the Bathurst winner kind of overtook the championship winner for the year. But I don't want this where it comes down to everyone looks at the last race, like Scotty gets a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane in the last race, and that lost him the championship. Well, there's probably a lot of little things during the year that lost you the championship, not just that one thing. But I wouldn't want it to come down to, say a two-horse race, and, Craig Lowndes duffs into the wall and Garth Tander goes on to win the championship for Shane Van Gisbergen kind of thing. I wouldn't want to see it that way. That's assuming that next year that, Brody's fighting for the championship with Shane Van Gisbergen at Triple Eight. Yeah, so that's all I would love to see, a Sandown, a Tail and Bend, and, a Pukekohe endurance round. Um, and I don't really want to see a Pukekohe, a Tail and Bend endurance round, but if it's going to go that way, well, yeah, I prefer to see the Gold Coast finale not be an endurance round. But if it was up to me, I'd, bring it back into the season, the Gold Coast round, and have that as a proper like 600k race, not these two little split. Have it a full on endurance, one big long race. So Supercars is for sale. Archer Capital has given up on their poor investment. If you get involved in the comments on Facebook, you will see how bad the investment has been for Archer Capital over the years. If you are a keyboard warrior on Facebook, I can see what you're talking about. In 2011, Archer bought 65% of the series for $180 million, and now they're talking about selling it for somewhere between $30 and $60 million. Whether that's the sale price in the end, who knows. So even if we look at the top end of the scale at $60 million, that's only a third of the value. But we don't know how much money they've actually got out of the investment over the years with, their shareholdings and things like that. There was a couple of lean years in there where I know the teams didn't get any money, but there have been years where the teams were getting, say, let's say $1 million each for their 35% stake, which if you have, 26 teams, that works out to be just under $1 million per, per percent, I suppose. It's hard to explain while I'm trying to do the calculations in my head, but say Archer might have been pulling somewhere like $50 million out of the series for their shareholding for those years. I should have actually done the sums before beginning to talk. But anyway, I could get out a calculator on my phone and work it out, but that would be pretty boring to watch. But that gives you some idea if they, a few of those good years kind of pays for, and then you don't get any money at the moment for putting $180 million in the bank. You don't get much interest on it, but maybe if you invested in real estate or something, maybe it would have been a better return. But we'll probably never know the actual figures. It's never going to come out. Anyway, it's for sale. Tim Miles's group, who sold it in the first place, they're part of, they're selling it again this time. The two main groups that people are talking about at the moment is a SCAFE consortium group with some sports management companies. A lot of people seem to be really against this one. I can see why, because everyone thinks, SCAFE's the problem of everything. I do complain about his Triple Eight bias commentary, but he's definitely not the wrong man for the job. Whether he's the right man or not, yeah, and who else is involved, and sports marketing people. Of course, when IMG, we go back to the Tony Cochrane days, it was IMG originally, and that's where the sport really took off, because you had sports marketing people who knew what to do with it, whereas Archer is an investment, and they're looking at it as investment, not bringing a sport up. Anyway, the other main group is the one that I'd actually be leaning to at the moment, and it's because of, kind of two key people involved in it. Paul Morris, Peter Adderton, Alan Gow, Peter Smith, and Mick Doohan. The main two I'm interested in at the moment, ridiculously it might sound, but, Alan Gow, because he's run the British Touring Car Championship, and he ran it in the Super Touring days, took off and come back and brought it back from the brink, and apparently now it's pretty good. I keep meaning to watch some of the racing in it, as I would like to watch some of the DTM that is now GT3, just to see what it's like, because people are saying how great it is now that the the DTM's gone GT3, so all of a sudden it must be good. But the other person who I know who's watched it has said that it's shit and it's dying, and probably shouldn't have sworn then, because that's going to hurt my YouTube stuff. Anyway, Alan Gow, he knows what he's doing with running categories. Peter Adderton, as much as everybody hates the guy, he has actually got some really good ideas for the fans, kind of thing. And the big issue I can see with this group will be that they will want the teams to have no say, which is a brilliant thing because you don't get their interests kind of thing. So you don't get, Roland Dane coming along and going, I'm not happy that we haven't won every race, so let's change these rules kind of thing. That, people on Facebook think that's how it all happens. But for someone, if they had full control, like a dictator, like F1 back in the Bernie days, where you can go, right, everyone having fancy rattle guns is stupid. We'll go down to Bunnings and buy some, battery-powered drills and off you go kind of thing. You all run, obviously it probably needs to be a bit better than a Ryobi battery drill, but that kind of thinking where you can't go and spend a heap of money on rattle guns and everyone gets the same front uprights, so you can't go and spend a heap of money on uprights and things like that, and you don't get these self-interest that's been the problem for so long. At the moment they're the ones that I'd be hoping it would go down that way. A couple of other, groups are supposedly putting their hat into the ring. Australian Racing Group is one. They're the guys with TCR and all that kind of junk. I don't want to see it go down that route because you end up then TCR kind of gets merged in, and those. I mean, it makes sense that it's all owned by one lot, but you don't have that competition, and then what happens, because they've already got TCR and then they've got Supercars, and they're, as much as they are competing for the same kind of landscape, TCR just becomes a support category of Supercars, and how does it fit in with Super 2 and Super 3 and things like that? I don't like the idea. I think they need to be kept separate. You go and have your club racing TCR over there, and you have your professional Supercars over here. People aren't going to like when I say that, but that's what it is. What it is. So Supercars is for sale. Someone's going to buy it. Be interesting to see what happens over the next few months with this one. The last thing I want to cover off that I didn't really cover off very well last week was the Wildcards, how well those guys fitted into the field this year. Thomas Randall and Kurt Kostecki. I was not holding my breath on Kurt Kostecki, but he's done a really good job, running mid-pack when he's made his appearances. Thomas Randall has even had, I think he's had a couple of top 10 finishes even. So, I'm expecting big things from him next year. Just shows you when a wildcard comes in properly with some proper equipment, what they can do. You think of the wildcards that had come in previously as, Super 2 teams and things like that. They're just, tail end Charlies for the weekend, but it's just a really good job from those guys. So that's it for this week. I have spoken for quite a while once again. Down in the comments, let me know what you think about the sale of Supercars. Endurance races, do you agree we want to see more? Where would you like to see endurance races? Would you like to see an endurance race finish off the championship? Keep the comments coming. supercarstalk@gmail.com, and I do promise that one day I will post something on Instagram again. But until then, I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.